matters.
Hi, everybody. I'm Crystal Haynes. Tonight on Greater Boston, 100 new arrests and calls for a college president to resign as students in schools across Boston protest Israel's attacks in Gaza and their college's financial ties to the country. Will their demands be heard? We'll talk to a student reporter from Northeastern and an expert on the history of American activism around the Israel-Gaza conflict ahead. Plus, nearly 50 years after the Vietnam War ended, a memorial project hopes to honor those who fled Saigon. The organizers join me ahead. Dozens of Northeastern students were in court today after Boston police arrested another 100 or so protesters and broke up the pro-Palestine encampment at the school over the weekend. That was a week after police arrested 100 protesters at Emerson College and shut down the encampment there. Protesters are still camped out at Harvard and Tufts as students across the country call on their colleges and universities to divest from Israel over the war in Gaza. Are their voices being heard, though? I'm joined now by Emily Spetz. She is campus editor for Northeastern's student newspaper, the Huntington News, and Marjorie Feld, a history professor at Babson College and the author of the forthcoming book, The Threshold of Dissent, a history of American Jewish critics of Zionism. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So, Emily, I'll start with you because we have been talking about how these student journalists are really how we understand what is happening, because you're there, places like Harvard, they're cut off from the public and other journalists. So what has it been like watching this unfold on campus?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely been hard, I think, as student journalists in the first place, because this is the first time a lot of us have covered anything like this. I think we did live updates, and doing something like that so fast-paced and having to keep up with social media and just everything going on the ground was difficult. And also, a lot of our staff had gone home for the summer, so we were pretty short-staffed. So it was dealing with a lot of exhaustion and just working overtime. I think also we were having problems getting students to talk to us, and just trying to keep up a good relationship, a good trusting relationship with the students that were organizing and protesting. And also just trying to be fair and complete and correct in our coverage. But I am really proud of the work that we did, and everyone really came together, so yeah.
Does it feel like the campus is divided over this issue in a way that you may not have seen before or have seen before?
Yeah, I will say that I've been campus editor since January, so and then deputy campus before that, so I've seen kind of campus the entire time during the war since October, and I think we have been pretty divided since the start. Even at this encampment on Friday, we had pro-Israel protesters show up, and there was some very tense confrontations between them. So yeah, it definitely feels like campus is divided. There's Jewish people saying that they feel threatened by the chants and the protest. And there's pro-Palestine students saying that they don't feel heard by the university and also feel threatened and feel like there's Islamophobia on campus.
Yeah. Marjorie, I want to ask you, I think that this conflict has really not only split up campuses, but also folks in the Jewish American communities. And you have been writing up on this sort of conflict for many years now.
I have. I began the book 7 or 8 years ago. It was a book that was delayed by COVID, but I just couldn't have imagined that it would be published in a climate like this one, which is such a chilly climate with regard to issues of dissent. So it's a little harrowing, actually, to be a witness to this. And I would just say, gently, that there are Jewish students on all sides of this issue. So we can't predict based on ethnicity, religion, or culture where someone falls. And I also would encourage us to think that there are more than just two sides. I think that people feel very conflicted and are internalizing a lot of the tension that she's writing about, that Emily's writing about.
Yeah, you mentioned that you actually you began this book 7 or 8 years ago when the events happened in October. I mean, I don't know, maybe we're doing a last edit or we're ready to push it out. I mean, what went through your mind?
Well, so the book was to be released, and I was to be doing final edits then. They asked me to write a new end of the book after the elections of fall 2022. So that was when a lot of American Jews were really dissenting from Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu's cabinet in Israel, and closing down American Jewish institutions to those far-right cabinet members. Then the October events happened, the brutal attack of Hamas on Israeli citizens. And as a result of that, they asked me to write a second coda to it. So it's really been a difficult and fraught experience putting the book out into the world, but also witnessing what's going on right now among American Jews and the courageous protesters on our college campuses at the same time.
I also think about the history is so complex in that region, and so many people, including the young people who are on campuses, are entering into it post-October, whereas there's so much history happening before that needs to be understood as well. How do you think that plays a role in sort of the emotion behind this and maybe some of the actions?
It's a terrific question. I think that for a long time, and this is one of the things that I try and others try to chronicle, any invocation of the history of Palestine or Palestinians has been really seen as a fraught thing to teach about or even to talk about in institutions of learning, higher ed and on down. So that's especially true within the American Jewish community, I think, where for reasons of Jewish safety, American Jews were not really supposed to talk about or teach about or learn about the history of the Nakba or Palestinian oppression at the hands of Israel. So the students who are protesting right now are kind of a logical evolution of this, and their demands are quite forthright. Right? They really want access to that history, and they want to teach about that history, and a lot of them are doing that, and mostly peacefully.
Emily, do you find that your peers or the folks you're interviewing are learning as they are protesting or gathering and becoming activated around this issue since October?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the encampment really showed me that even more because there was such a community, and I saw people reading all kinds of political books and kind of teaching each other. There was speakers from outside organizations coming to speak. I've heard some people say that they heard conversations among demonstrators about just, telling each other what they had learned in the books they're reading. So yeah, I definitely think that there has been a lot of learning about not even just how to demonstrate, because I've heard, the students that were arrested today talking about how they've learned how to demonstrate during this time. But yeah, also a lot of learning about history and the conflict overall.
Yeah, when we are looking at your reporting and the reporting of the Huntington, it talked about the first day of the encampment. Things are really, really intense.
Yeah, definitely. That first day was definitely intense. I think police was present even before the encampment started. It started at 8 a.m. and then at about 2 p.m. we had Boston police show up in riot gear, and they stood on Centennial Common for about 30 minutes, and then they ended up leaving. So that was like a really interesting moment. And then later we had students from Berklee College of Music and Boston University join our encampment. So yeah, it was pretty intense, and there's a lot of moments throughout, some 48 hours that people were camping out that were very tense, but also, very peaceful and communal.
The timing is interesting because we know that, it's the final days of classes. I teach at Northeastern, in full disclosure, and I had to submit my grades today. So what happens next? I know that Huskies for Palestine say that they're not done advocating, that they're going to stay out there, but is this something that we anticipate folks to continue past classes being over?
I think so. I think Northeastern especially has a pretty strong culture of taking summer classes or staying for co-op. So yeah, I think definitely we're going to see more action at Northeastern specifically. And yeah, I've definitely heard from people that, this isn't over. People are going to be fighting for Northeastern to drop the disciplinary charges against students. And, continuing, even if not through the summer, I think next semester we're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah. Marjorie, you know, I know you have been writing on these conflicts on college campuses before. We saw the actions at Columbia University, of course, in New York, Emerson with Mayor Wu's decision to send Boston police there to break up those encampments, and the actions on other. Like, what do you make of the response that is happening on college campuses, which are kind of known as these places where students learn about new things or get activated around events that are happening in the world, and colleges, you know, have to sort of deal with it. And now you're seeing this sort of aggressive response to breaking down or shutting down these protests or encampments.
Right. I mean, there are a bunch of ways we can look at it from a historical perspective. We can think about all the student movements on college campuses, like the anti-Vietnam movement, the anti-apartheid movement. In all of these situations and contexts, students were leading the way, right? Imbibing the messages of anti-colonialism and communicating to the public the urgency of the issue. So institutions of higher learning are supposed to be places where people learn, students learn, and there's been a curtailing of their ability to talk and learn about these issues. So it's to their credit that they're creating these learning communities when they're peaceful. I would also say, I think we have to be really vigilant in differentiating between when we're feeling uncomfortable with knowledge that might challenge the way we understand things and when there's actual physical danger. Nobody should have to feel unsafe in any place of learning ever. Any kind of hate speech should be condemned and made to go away. At the same time, I think that a lot of these lessons that they're teaching us, these students, make people feel uncomfortable, and it's good to lean into that discomfort and figure out what we can do, as Emily was saying so well, right, to keep this momentum going, to keep the learning happening. And I would, if I can, I would just add that the Passover Seder happened on a bunch of these college campuses. So there's this Jewish holiday of liberation that a lot of the Jews on these and their broader coalitions on these campuses have engaged in this ritual, which is a sort of a reclaiming of Jewish traditions of justice and liberation. So all of these, I think, are vantage points from which we can view what's going on campuses right now. And there's reason for optimism, even as we fear for some of the police response.
Yeah, and this is not the first time that students on college campuses have been activated around a conflict that has happened in that region.
No, to be sure.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen protests in previous chapters of these protests with what's going on in the Middle East. There's much we can learn from them, and I think it appears that we've reached a sort of a low point of what I call the threshold of dissent. And that is accompanied by a really sort of hopeful moment where people are demanding access to this information and this history so that they come to understand all the conflicts that might follow from a more informed perspective, which I really respect.
Yeah, Emily, I'm thoughtful about, as you report on this, you must be learning so much about this particular issue yourself and have questions around, the learning, like this conflict, but other conflicts that you may have to report on later on.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely been difficult considering the history and kind of like the divisions and what people think about the history and kind of this conflict overall. And it's been difficult, I guess, to kind of gauge, I guess, what we should cover and what we shouldn't, because I think as journalists, we have a responsibility to give context to a conflict. But I think that it's kind of impossible in some ways to give all the context in every single story. So it's kind of been like a battle for me personally of how much history and how much, I guess, I don't know, like nuance do I put into my articles with a limited amount of words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine, it's something that you're going to have to be thinking about for some time soon, since this is what apparently folks have vowed to continue. Emily and Marjorie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next year will mark 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War. And here in Boston, members of the local Vietnamese community are working to create a permanent monument in Dorchester's Townfield Park. The project's called 1975, a Vietnamese diaspora commemoration initiative. It'll draw on stories, photos, and lived experiences of community elders who fled from the war to shape the installation. I'm joined now by the co-organizers of the initiative, Ngoc Jan Vu, Linh Vu, and Cang Nguyen, Vice President of the Vietnamese American Community of Massachusetts. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
So, Ngoc, I'm gonna start with you. And talk to me about this particular initiative, because I imagine a lot of folks who aren't in the Vietnamese community aren't aware of some of the events that brought folks to Massachusetts, to the Dorchester area, and the importance of this initiative.
Yeah, so I mean, this project, this initiative has been a long time coming. Really, I would say years really in the making, especially seeds being planted directly here in the community. So next year is the year 2025, and it's the 50th anniversary commemoration of Black April and also the Vietnamese diaspora to the United States globally. And so really in the community, wanting to build something to really be a marker right in our community and to commemorate the stories, the lived experience, the legacy of the war. So really that's what this initiative encapsulates.
Well, Linh, you know, speaking of lived experiences, I know that so many folks have a direct connection to this particularly terrible event in Vietnamese culture, and then also the rebuilding of families afterward.
Yes, most definitely. And this is a intergenerational experience. I mean, the war has been fought. The war is continuing to be fought in our memory, as well as in the ways that we have been living and presenting out the traumas of the war in our own daily lives. And that's in the elders, and that's in ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I'm talking about the younger generation, and it will continue to impact the later generations to come as well. So this is an intergenerational effort to build something in a place that is to commemorate, to honor, respect the past, but also is something to educate and to also connect the present generations to the past, and then for the later generations to still feel that, you know, they are a part of this diaspora and this diaspora community, that is still more to come as well.
Why is that so important to connect the generations?
Because we are a family, and I feel like, I mean, I know in my family as well, it is very important for me as the younger generation to know where I come from, right? And there's a Vietnamese proverb, "Ăn quả nhớ kẻ trồng cây." When eating the fruit, know who planted the tree. And so our parents, our elders, our grandparents are here. They came here, they fled their country, they uprooted their lives, they were displaced from their homes, their villages, to come here and sacrifice so much to come here. And we are here, and we're here living out our dreams. We're able to do that because of our parents, our elders. And some of us, even myself and John, we were young when we actually came here. We sought refuge here. So we're part of that younger community of refugees from 1975 as well. And so it's very, very important for not only our generation to remember that, that those sacrifices that has been done in order for us to be here, but for later generations to know that if you're a part of the Vietnamese American community, you know, you are also part of this history as well.
Absolutely. And Cang, I mean, talk to me about this, how long it has taken for finally a monument to the work of that trying to be put into the park, to Dorchester, and its connection to Dorchester.
Well, I came here 1984, a refugee with a journey, a terrible journey, escaped by boat, and then got to Thailand and stayed there for 2.5 years. So when I came here, I'm really young, about 17 years old. And since then, I contribute to the community. We want to build a strong community with our generation. Certainly that Trân and Linh come to me, connect to the Vietnamese community. I live in the area, I know them for a while. But when they bring up the idea of the memorial project, it's a wonderful one, and I thought about it for a long time, but you know, my ability maybe had limited. You know, so but you know, they young generation, and they really want to go back to the root where they come from. I want to thank you for the old generation has sacrificed their life. And now it's time for them. They want to build a strong community with a history that cannot be, forget. They bring up the project, and that's wonderful. And the community come up, and then they happy to support whatever they can to make things happen in reality.
I can imagine it feels good that someone is trying to acknowledge what yourself and so many others went through just to come here and live part in the, the American dream, I guess. Yeah.
The only thing that surprised me that I thought my generation remember about the war. They coming up with very young. Some of them were born in this country, but they came back to the community and they want to help. And their effort is really good with help the Vietnamese community with this project, and that is their initiative. I didn't mention anything. She called me, said, Kang, I want this happened 2 years ago. Say, wow, good idea. And then she working hard, both of them working really hard. And now we had a momentum to go on. Hopefully it happened very soon.
Yeah, do you think this will help, Jan and Lynn, either of you can answer this. Do you think this will help to allow folks outside the Vietnamese community to really understand that what folks like Kang and others went through, the legacy you all are carrying on as well?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a part of it. I mean, this is the first time something like this is happening in the Dorchester community and in New England, to have a permanent, reminder on the legacy of war and what it means to be a part of the Vietnamese diaspora community. And I think we're mindful of the fact that we live, in the U.S. among so many, diverse community. And so as much as the primary audience of this project is the Vietnamese community, we're also mindful of the narrative of war, the narrative of its impact resonating with other communities that also shared that similar very story of migration and displacement, especially centering war. And so we're really, hopeful in this, narrative being resonant with so many community that share, and also in the experience of displacement, of migration, and the waves of coming to America.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will add to that, I am an instructor in Asian American Studies at UMass Boston. And in my very own course, which is Asian American Studies 294, Resources for Vietnamese American Studies. So that is not a course that is required to take by the students. That is a course that's chosen to be taken by the students. And yes, a good percentage of my students in that course are Vietnamese American young students. And they come into the course, and one of the questions is, why are Vietnamese here in the United States? And that's not only the question that is shared by, with students outside of the Vietnamese American community, that is also students in the Vietnamese American community. They too are yearning, desiring to understand and to learn the historical and contemporary contexts and where their stories, their family stories situate in those contexts. And so it's very important that this memorial, because it will also be an educative platform. It will be a commemorative platform. We will also incorporate through, this memorial, other multimedia kind of platforms and ways to share
there's a
stories.
Documentary as well, right?
Yeah. Well, there's also ways in that memorial to share the stories and the historical context, the history of the Vietnamese diaspora as well, for, many more wider audiences and communities to understand and to share, because there are a lot of shared experiences. And as the world is today, the diaspora communities continue to multiply. And so there are some of these sacrifices that our elders have shared since 1975 with even the diaspora communities that continue to shape the world today.
What was it like collecting those stories?
The stories intergenerationally.
Yeah.
Someone have asked this of us before, and I will use the same word. It has been very powerful because I think the members of the Vietnamese, I'm just talking about the Vietnamese diaspora community in general, there are a lot of members who want to tell these stories. They just not have been safe put in safe places to tell these stories, or they feel like these stories don't matter in the greater narrative of America. But they totally matter. You know, the stories of, and any stories of the experiences since the Vietnam War, in the Vietnam War, or the American War in Vietnam, as some people call it, all matter. But somehow we've been socialized to believe that they don't matter, right? And so it's been very powerful for folks in the Vietnamese community to regain that power, to reclaim those stories as their own. And those are the dominant narratives that should exist in the global as well as American society as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Kang, I'm curious, and you can give you the last word here. What do you hope folks take away from both this documentary project and this monument? What do you hope that people, Vietnamese and non-Vietnamese, take from it?
Well, I noticed on the April 28th that when they do the event at Brigade, the room is 200 people, but you know what? How much the young generation? Two-thirds comment.
Two-thirds. Yeah.
Two-thirds.
Yeah.
So that means, like, and then look like when I came here, I thought that my generation ended. The next generation will be totally American.
Yeah.
They don't want to know anything about it, but that could be a mistake. When I see it, the old generation really care and want to find out about this project. So I think that most people want to know. Like, to be honest, my kids, they know that I'm a refugee, but they want to know more why I'm here. And my story is a true story, how I escaped by boat with 18 people, turned up to be 38 people. And we make it 7 days, and like 90% we die, but we make it.
Wow.
So that's how, when you look at the story, you will see how the old generation sacrificed their life for the young generation. Like her dad has sacrificed his life in prison and came here for her. So they came to learn, and they want to support this project. I say that it's a huge momentum if you come on that day.
Yeah, amazing stories, and we'll continue to follow the progress. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For more information on the 1975 Vietnamese Commemoration Initiative overview, go to tranvuarts.com/1975 Viet Healing. Well, that's it for tonight, but come right back here tomorrow. After the killings of Eric Garner and George Floyd, police have focused on using so-called less lethal force. But a new Frontline documentary uncovers just how often those tactics turn deadly. I'll talk to the film's director. Plus, one of the many people moving out of Massachusetts to find affordable housing. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.
Next time on